Welcome, folks, to the 9th of October Aries Working Group call. We are glad you're here. This is a Hyperledger slash LF decentralized trust meeting, which means that the antitrust policy and the code of conduct apply. Both are in the agenda. Agenda link is in the chat. You can find it in the normal wiki location. We have some cool transitory stuff to discuss today, which will be important to figure out and make happen. You're welcome to add yourself to the attendees list. And is there anyone new that would like to introduce themselves? I think I recognize everyone. Any announcements that should be on our list? I guess IW is not on the list, but should be, as it is this month. 29th through 31st, I think.
I think you can take off the Aries Go.
We've had that for a minute.
And DIDTW now has an information site, didtdw.org.
Is it an S?
Yep.
Like that?
Yep.
I knew that was coming, but didn't remember exactly what the URL was. Perfect. Which is very cool. Nicely done on the docs generation on that, by the way. This looks awesome with all sorts of cool stuff. So very awesome there. Any other announcements? Any release status or work updates?
Yeah, so ACA-Py 101 was released yesterday. It is now out in the wild, and that it didn't have a lot beyond one, just normal maintenance, a few things caught, no breaking changes. So just cleanup. It did announce four deprecations. Deprecation notices. So nothing has changed in the code, but the first is the OWF move. So that is now pending. I've asked Rye to make the move. I believe he started it. So that is pending. So that's number one, is the move of the repository. The other three relate to the movement of AIP 1.0 protocols from the core to plugins. So work's been done to extract connections, protocol, issue credential, and present proof 1.0 to be plugins. And that means, so while it's still working today, the next time we go to use, we do a release, the next minor release, likely 1.1, anyone still using those protocols will have to change their configuration to include them via plugins rather than just having them work out of the box. So they'll still work. You just have to add them as plugins to your configuration. So that's the updates there. We'll also get moving on the other repositories. So plugins for sure will go almost immediately, and then we'll get the other ones related to ACA-Py moved over as well. So that's where we are with those.
I like deprecation via plugin, by the way. That's a convenient way to do that.
That's a Daniel Bloom idea that is like, oh, super clever.
Yeah. It also means you don't have to be as careful about timing, right? Because there's a way forward. So.
Yep. Exactly. There is a breaking change way to continue. You got to change your configuration, but you don't have to change much else.
Right. That's awesome. Cool. Any other work updates? All right. So we have a bunch of discussion topics today related to the OWF transition, a bunch of stuff to discuss and figure out and work to be done. The first thing is, and this is on there from last week, is the meeting adjustments and actually moving the repositories, which has begun, any build pipeline adjustments, and then marketing here, which we'll talk about down below. This is a little bit of a review from last time. That call is posted, so if you didn't listen to last time, it may be worth catching up to understand all the conversation there. The big news this week, we didn't meet last week because of the conflicting time for the OWF TAC, which was under discussion, was approving the Interop call. That was approved, and so work's been done. I've been talking with Stephen and Sean Bohan about making those adjustments. And so here's some proposed stuff. None of this is set yet, so feedback is very welcome. And easy to change at this point because stuff hasn't actually happened. So anyway, so after that, there's some messaging and a link to take a look at that is proposed stuff that we post to the wiki, so that people that are looking for the wiki and wondering what happened have pointers to where stuff is actually happening now. And there's also some Aries RFCs repository upcoming changes and work that needs to be done before then. And so that's kind of the agenda. Before we super dive in, any adjustments we want to make before we get going? Okay. So let me lay out the Interop call, stuff that we've talked about, and then gather some feedback. Any comments or ideas that folks have would be welcome there. So alternate weeks. We would desire this community to spend time in the new call, as the large majority of topics will be precisely the same and the same interests. And so since we all have time right now in this call, this seemed like a good one to keep. And so the problem is that the OWF has every other week they have a TAC call, a technical advisory committee, right, Stephen? Is that what TAC stands for? I didn't give you mute warning. I was going to call you out. Anyway, yes, technical advisory committee, I think. And so,
Yes, it is. Sorry about
yeah.
that.
So Stephen is on that committee, which is awesome because he can help be apprised of things both on our behalf and everything else. But that means that there's this conflict every other week, which is a little annoying. And so what the proposal is that we do an alternate week, where we have the normal call. This is in Pacific time. And so this is the same call we have now, and then we shift it an hour later for weeks that we have the TAC. This also notes, Sean did this, it also notes just holidays upcoming that we won't be holding any meetings. And so that's the idea there. Also, Sean has proposed, and I think is a good idea, that the new call begins the week following IIW. So we have a couple of weeks to remind folks to spread the news, get things sorted and everything else, and then the new call begins on 11/6, which would be the week after IIW. Yeah, Colton.
Is there a calendar invite or Google Calendar thing that we can just add this to all of our calendars?
There will be. That did come up in conversation with Sean, and Sean's aware. So yes, there will be a calendar that you can just kind of copy in, and that way there'll be two, incidentally, because Google Calendar doesn't handle the shifting time thing. So there'll be like an A week and a B week type of a thing, but that will have both of those. So yes, there'll totally be a calendar invite. Any comments on the timing, starting the alternating time slots? Anything else related to calls? I don't know what Confluence uses. Maybe does the login is the little symbol with a little box and an arrow, or is it after that point, Daniel, that the sign in is painful?
It seems to want to try to use my existing Jira account, and I don't know that Jira account has permissions to use the LFDT Confluence, and it's just now I'm on just like a loop where if I push the button, it doesn't even prompt me for a login anymore. So I don't know what I've done. So
What have you done?
yeah.
I also don't know, but we'll work that out and figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah, this is the Confluence for LFDT. Yeah, I logged in with my normal email address and it worked.
Interesting.
It appears as long as you're known to Atlassian, it works.
It used to be I swear it was an LF login.
It was, yeah. The hosted wiki was an LF login, but now that we're on the Confluence, the cloud one,
It's an Atlassian.
it's Atlassian now.
That's
So there you
weird.
go. Yeah. Sam, I was thinking you and I and Sean should have a meeting to go over all of the infrastructure that OWF has, so we know about whether they've got a wiki and where their calendar is and how to get it posted versus the messaging. I think we probably should, the three of us should get.
We totally should. I asked him about a wiki. He mentioned that there's some groups going to GitHub wiki stuff, and some groups that are more interested in using the wiki thing. And I asked him if live editing was going to be a thing, since that's what we really enjoyed about using the Confluence one. And he did tell me that it was that he thought that was the case, that we would have that live editing. So yes, but we should absolutely have that call to figure that out. Cool. Any other comments about the timing of it all? So that gives us technically 2 more weeks before IW starts. It's a little bit complicated because on the 23rd I am at the Hyperledger Member Summit, and so that's not a convenient time. Maybe I might be able to do it depending on when it starts, but I may or may not be able to run the call on the 23rd. But that gives us 2 additional weeks before IW to get all the work done, and I'll get to what work needs to be done in a minute. Any other questions about timing? Okay, so the new name of the call is the OWF Wallet Interop SIG, the Special Interest Group. And here are the things that I have written out that relate to sort of our perspective on stuff that we have commonly discussed here that will still be discussed. So Interop profiles, and then also interopathons, I don't think are outside the scope of what that call can coordinate, as far as some event where people want to get together and talk about an interop profile or demonstrate adherence or test things or whatever else, right? I think is a really excellent thing to have involved there. Movement in progress within wallet efforts is a little squishy of a description, but the idea is that we can hear about stuff that's happening. Often, interoperability begins with awareness, in the sense that we understand what other folks are doing and what advantages it brings, and then they can help provide that. And that's related to the awareness of new ideas and concepts. If people want to propose stuff or talk about work that they're doing or something that they've done or that they'd like to try, that's okay. The wrinkle here is that actual spec-related progress needs to happen in other meetings that are designed for that. The OpenWallet Foundation has talked pretty openly about not being a place where specs are written, but rather where code happens. And so that's a little bit more of a division than we've had before. We probably should have been doing that sort of a thing before, but in our defense, the Aries call has gone on long enough that it existed back before we had other places to actually talk about stuff. So it's not so we have this sort of historical thing happening where this was a place where we figured a lot of stuff out and made it happen, and you could argue that some of that was along the spec writing stuff. Probably the most notable is that like discussions about DIDComm protocols for awareness are awesome, but for really collecting feedback and discussing improvements to the protocol, a better place for that is the DIDComm users group hosted over at the diff. For example, and so, but we are mindful as hosts that it'll take a little while to make those sort of adjustments about where conversations happen, and so we can do a little bit of guiding on those calls so that we stay on target, but also promote the work happening in the other appropriate places. That's a little bit about kind of the scope of that call. Any questions, comments, clarifications, suggestions? All right. Next on the agenda is, action item on this is that we'll keep doing it. We will get the calendar stuff and the links so that people can figure out how to join the new call. As part of that happening, Sean is also going to be able to be joining this call for a bit so that people that don't come all the time and may not be listening to meeting recordings or reading the agenda will can for at least a few weeks join and see what's going on, and that way they can kind of understand what's happening there. So that's there. All right, next up is messaging. There's a link here to this post that contains suggested things to put on the homepage of the Hyperledger Aries wiki, and perhaps linked to at least the Aries repository itself, which doesn't actually contain any code, and I don't think it's slated to move anywhere. And so the idea there is just to help people find information if they're like, wait, what? I like went on vacation for a bit and like this all happened, or I wasn't paying attention, like what, where to go, that they're not just dropped, but they can find locations and information for where these things should happen. And so this is not something that we have to necessarily approve today, but we'll probably need to next week. So that we can, as a community, be happy with what it says and the information that it contains and stuff like that. And so this was written a little bit ago, so we don't really, so we can probably start to slot in dates and make some other adjustments as necessary to adjust this to reflect what actually happened. This was written before that. And then being able to contain the relevant links about where things were, how to find them. So new repositories, although they should forward if they've moved, having links to where the new location is, the associated calls, information about agendas, etc. Adding these in as much as possible is the goal here. The idea is to have this ready so that we can copy and paste this into the wiki and other locations to make that actually happen. Thoughts, comments? Okay, so this should be open. I think this is anyone with the link can access, no sign-in required. And so take a look at this and please add suggestions or comments so that we can tune this language and have that ready.
Do you want comments, editing? What's the best way to approach it?
If it's uncontroversial, just do it. If it's controversial, then or you're not confident in the language there, then do it as a suggestion. That way it just kind of highlights it for everyone. But if you're like fixing like a grammatical error or like changing a link, like just do it. It doesn't matter nearly as much.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's more efficient. Everything as a change drives me nuts because you're like approving every like E and comma and space adjustment. That drives me nuts. Yes. You should, if you haven't read this, please do read it and be aware of that so that we can have that ready to go. And this could be an efficient topic in a future meeting. Any questions about messaging? So one thing that you'll notice about the tone of this is that it explains the move and what next and everything else. There's lots of ways that people, I'm sure, will assume this move is happening. Some might assume that we're doing this because Aries is dead and we're trying to drop its remains over on the OWF, which isn't true. Some will assume that we've finally come to our senses and are joining the OWF. Some will, make all sorts of assumptions about that, and that's going to inevitably happen. The point about leaving a message here is both to sort of direct people, but also celebrate the success that we've had as a community, about what we've accomplished, about what we've made, demonstrated, deployed, as all the work that we've done, which has been significant. We still have by a large margin the widest, or the widest deployed code bases. that implement these technologies anywhere, and in production environments. And while there are lots of code bases making all sorts of awesome advancements, which is great, we are a significant this open source Aries community is a significant contributor to progress and evidence of the fact that this really does work in the wild, and does really cool stuff. So wanted to highlight that this is a nice successful move to make this happen, and consider the future and alignment and everything else. It's easy to play the like what would have happened if this got started now game, and of course there are more organizations and opportunities to collaborate in different areas than there were when Aries was started. Aries was an early thing, and the first attempt to actually produce full stack interoperability for these technologies, and we did so quite successfully. And so I just wanted to take a minute to mention that because it's significant. Sometimes we get all caught up in the minutia of the details of what's happening there, but I wanted to spend just a second there. Any other thoughts and comments before we talk about the Aries RFC repo? All right. So the Aries RFC repo. The repo is slated to go into maintenance mode. So we talked about different things to do. There's a lot of valuable stuff there, and there were concerns that with repo changes or names or other things like that we really didn't want people to get lost. And so we kind of the general consensus of what to do with that repository was to leave it in place in kind of frozen mode, where it's not technically an archived repository, but the only pull request that will be accepted is pointers to new work. We anticipate lots of work going on in the future, and so if folks want to update the stuff that's happening or that was referenced in the Aries RFCs with links to new locations where that work can be found, those are the types of PRs that will be accepted. And other than that, no new work will be accepted there. The idea is that the work will go in other places as we've discussed, whether it be the DIDComm user group or stuff over Interop profiles in the new Interop SIG or other stuff that's happening there. So that's the mode that the Aries RFC repo will go into. Any questions about that? Comment, suggestions as well, of course. Part of that effort is that we really ought to handle all of these pull requests that are here, so that this becomes empty, and the only pull requests that remain or that show up are those that I've mentioned, where it's pointers to new work or new locations that's happening. And so to do that, we've got to do one of two things to all of these pull requests. One of them is just close them. It was an idea that was promoted but never really merged, or if it is something that can move forward, or that contains value, being in the Aries RFC repository is something to reference, that it becomes merged. And again, the presence in the repository itself doesn't actually control whether this is part of an Interop profile or is being relied on anyone, but simply documented in the community as a design for something. And so that's worth considering as we do this. And so efforts both today and in the future, we need to apply towards cleaning this stuff up, so that these pull requests are cleaned up as part of that, to make that happen. Any questions about that process that we need to accomplish?
Is there a way over at didcom.org that we can promote that these all exist? Like I've proposed doing a make doc site or something like that over there. Is there interest in that?
For all of the RFCs?
Well, at least some of them, like AIP2.
Anything. So I'll give you a short answer. I think that anything of value that continues to be useful to the DIDComm community, or frankly any other community, can definitely be linked to within future work happening somewhere else. We've discussed in the over on the like DIDComm.org, it does not have a concept RFC equivalent, but it could in the future. It only has really space for the protocol definitions, but it could have concept RFCs, including interop profiles, to demonstrate stuff within that community. And in that case, absolutely, linking to the stuff would be incredibly useful.
And on that kind of note, I have been looking at doing a rewrite of the DIDComm.org website to make it easier to modify and maintain compared to what we currently have there. So anything is open, especially with that in mind.
Totally. And the need to do so, I think, will drive the work there to make that actually happen, right? So that pointing to specific things from this repository, and then of course advancing them in the future, is incredibly useful there. Cool. So we need to evaluate these protocols in order or these pull requests in order to decide whether we're going to merge them or not as part of that as part of all that process. Some of the folks that have originally proposed may not be here, and so that's something that we need to kind of consider as each of these things go forward. And we may not be able to accept some just because of the lack of discussion. We don't have to not accept them today or even next week. But before before it enters that maintenance mode, then this is going to be a necessary change that happens. And I didn't have anything else on the agenda besides open discussion. And so first, I guess, a call for other topics that we want to discuss today, things that I should have been bringing up but haven't, that are important. Or I propose that we divert our energy into the PR list and have some evaluation of the state of these and what we ought to do with them. This will take a little bit on some of them to clean up, so having some awareness, I think, would be helpful there. So any topics that we want to discuss today that were not on the agenda but should have been?
Let's do RFCs.
Let's do RFCs. So here's how I propose we do this. Rather than me walking through everything, and I can do that a little bit, if I could lean onto all of you as my conscripted volunteers, go pick one, specifically ones that you proposed. I think if you happen to have ones that proposed, would be great ones to bring up. And then let's drop them in the chat for discussion, and then let's go through and discuss those. Folks can talk about it, make a case one way or the other, and then we can decide on an action here in the community about that. Given that all of these are undoable actions, I think that we can go ahead and move fast as opposed to being super careful. And many of these have been open for years, as it were, to make it happen anyway. So I think that is that's how we should proceed. Is that okay with folks? So go ahead and grab ones. I will go ahead and start with one of mine that has been delayed for a little bit, and then if you don't have one that's yours, then go ahead and pick someone else's and adopt it for the day, so that we can go ahead and make the case. And while you're doing that, I'll go ahead and get started, and then we can decide what to do about stuff. So I'm going to bring up this email access governance framework. The intent for this particular RFC was to describe how governance could bundle together the folks that are actually doing stuff, in the sense that if a collection of folks wanted to get together and recognize a set of issuers for a particular credential, then a governance framework could be used to do that. So this is 535. I think this is a valuable concept, but there's a lot of work that has happened since this was written that is not reflected here. And so what I propose actually happens to this is that this is updated with a note at the top to say this is here for historical purposes, but advanced work has, or the work has advanced in some of these other forms that is not reflected here, and then linked to those locations. Specifically, I would mention the credential trust establishment, which is the generalized form of this, over at the diff. I think would be a great way to, or a great thing to point to for that work. Any thoughts on my proposed action, which is to update this with a note at the top that indicates that this is early work, point to a new location, and call it done? Any objections to that? Okay, then I will do that for 535. I'm going to add a note here. Okay, so we're going to do that. All right. So Daniel has mentioned in the chat we have 550. Here's the invite action protocol. This was submitted by Daniel Hardman. The point of this was to invite the other party to begin something. This is a concept that we talked about a lot, but we never actually pushed over the finish line, which indicates that there's a little bit of a delay there. If we do have this some more interest, then we can go ahead and bring this back, in the sense that we can revisit it, of course, probably in DIDComm v2 syntax, etc., to make that happen. This was submitted quite a while ago. Lots of discussion back in 2020, nice. Back in 2020 to make that happen. So Stephen, you propose closing this. Anyone opposed to closing just due to lack of sufficient interest? Anyone opposed? All right, we've got a second from Daniel, so we're going to go ahead and close that one. Any other what's up next for discussion here?
I think we should talk about the compression feature.
What was that, Kim?
We should talk about the feature compression 812.
Okay.
The goal of this was to be able to use dictionary compression to either reduce DIDComm message sizes or to reduce the out-of-band invitation size. I like the concept, and so the question is do we keep this as a concept for future thought, or do we just close this and not worry about it?
I think it contains a valuable exploration of this that I think would be as a discussion of the application of the technique, I think is valuable. So I'm a fan of merging that. Stephen, you had a handful of questions there, and kind of as it related here. Any thoughts on merging this as is, or if it could be merged with a note?
I mean, my thought is that this isn't going to get merged into DIDComm 1, used in DIDComm 1 practically. I think my thought would be to put this into a DIDComm 2 structure and see if it fits there.
But do we want to leave it in the repository as a documentation of what happened? It's not going to get merged, but there's lots of stuff that hasn't actually been used in one anyway, right?
I'm fine with that.
It's mad about the index, which I think we can resolve here. I'm fine with that too, in the sense that I think that documenting this and having a place to link to it as an application of the technique for messaging, I think is worthwhile. How do I do an approving review here? Let me work on resolving this conflict here, see if I can make that happen.
I believe for approving review, you go to view the code, and then it's in the top right.
This is not a particularly helpful conflict resolution window.
Yeah, the new approach eliminates the need to use index.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, it's still not going to be right.
No, I can't.
Yeah.
Kim,
It
any
might
chance?
merge, but it's not right.
Yeah, Kim, any chance you can update this to pull the index out of the PR?
Yeah, I can update that. I'll get to that today.
So 812 Kim 2. Hang on, let me take a note since I'm trying to do it this way. Because I would like to merge that. Okay, Daniel calls out 726. This is force the connection into a complete state. I do remember this conversation. Daniel proposes to close since we're actively phasing out the connections protocol. I agree with that. Any commentary on closing 726, given that we're phasing it out anyway? Any objections to closing? All right. Close with that comment. Daniel, 586. Sign attachment protocol. Proposed we close. I think it was originally in the context of endorsing any transaction. This is both too general and not specific enough to be useful, since for signing an indie transaction, a specific protocol needs to be followed to sign it correctly. I agree with that. Any objections to closing this? Daniel, I'm going to steal your comment because I think it's insightful here. Any objections to closing 586? All right, that is done. Message tracing that I'll pull up. This was proposed by Ian a long time ago, and it never really went anywhere. We talked about the concept a lot. I believe it was demonstrated, but there was never any sort of general consensus around this. We don't have Ian today. Stephen, you're closest in proximity, I think. Any commentary?
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty sure this exists in ACA-Py and works, but I don't know what to do about it.
If it
We've
exists,
used
then
it a bunch.
why don't we merge it then?
I don't think it would be a bad thing. He's still got it as a work in progress. That's hilarious. And Ian's Ian's not available right now. He's not back for another month, so.
So I'm going to hit ready for a review on this to see if we can even approximately get there. This is old enough that there may be a little bit of some fun. So it
He
just
didn't do an index. That's good.
right. So it just needs an approving review. Someone want to go approve that? If it's been implemented and it's in ACA-Py, then I think there's no danger in merging this at all.
Yeah.
Nice. Daniel got to it.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to comment. Let's merge this one. All right. Other ones we want to. Thanks, Daniel, for getting that approval. Here's a goal code for a human readable verifier. This was intended to be a goal code that proposed. This was linked to the human, or sorry, to the email address verification stuff that we're talking about. The other one that I'm also going to merge, and the goal here is that you could. This is really lightweight, but the idea is that you could. It was a general way of using a goal code in an invitation to say like, hey, I'd like to have some identifier that I'm likely to recognize via email or phone or social handle or something like that. The status is an early proposal here, as proposed, and so I think that I think the concept would be nice to preserve, even though it's not really built into anything, similar to the other one. There's not really future work on this, specifically the way that there is to the governance because of how that applies. So with that, I propose that we merge this. Is there anyone opposed to merging this? If not, can I get an approving review? Daniel's the GitHub master today. Okay, comment there and merge that one. Okay, Daniel proposed 725 for discussion. Remove signatures from example requests. These got addressed by DidExchange 1.1. I believe that is true. And so that does clean it up. This stuff is out of stuff anyway, so I'm good with that. Anyone opposed to killing closing 725, given that DidExchange 1.1 contains those fixes, and frankly we're phasing out DidExchange anyway with DIDComm v2. Last call for objections to closing. All right. That is done. Okay. I have an update for this one. Let's see, message timing decorators.
Yeah, I was just looking at this one. It seems to be just a bit of a weird combination of message timing and message pickup. I don't see this being implemented or adopted. I think a lot of the concerns about message pickup have also likely been addressed in updated versions of the message pickup protocol as well.
Any objections to closing? All right. So here's a push notification, push notification for the Expo protocol. I think that the push notification concepts are really valuable here. And my inclination is to merge this, even if it's not perfect, just because of the utility of having that ready. And so we have the other two files from the PR problem with the conflict, and I think if we could, then that would allows us to merge, but that wasn't done as a request a while ago, and so I don't think we can trivially without having the index actually present there. Any comments?
I'll second that. I think we should probably merge this. The file conflict is a problem. I think I do have the ability to like update the PR, so maybe I'll go and try and do that real fast and see if we can get this merged.
I think there may be one other file besides index that's actually in here, because it listed 3 files changes. Oh, it changes. I think this has been done. The 212 has already been done. So this pickup one needs to change as well, so that we can just merge the one file that we really want to. So if you're updating that PR, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'll give that a shot.
That would be awesome. And I'm lost. Okay. I'm going to add this with a comment. Go ahead and keep working on that, Daniel. Okay, we have 744. We already fixed that one. Add trust input protocol under the concepts folder. I had a comment, but I think we can just merge this. Let me see if I can update the branch here. Given that it was such a minor change last time, Matthew proposed this and talked about this. I think that given the lack of critical feedback, I think we should merge this. Anyone opposed? Can I get a merging, an approving review, Stephen, since Daniel's chasing the other thing? Any opposition? Or Stephen, any chance on an approving review for this? This is 803. Stephen, you there? Yay! Stephen is here.
Yeah, and it's merged.
Too busy doing the thing to unmute.
Sorry.
Perfect. No, you're good.
Yeah.
You're totally good.
Good.
Okay. Daniel, I'm working on this one. Daniel's working on that way. Kim's working on that one. Here's the VCDI credential offer request alternate proposal opened in April by Patrick. Let's see. This is a modification to modification, or are there just 2 commits?
Yeah, it's a modification to something that was implemented as part of the anon-creds in anon-creds in W3C format work.
So his change has already been implemented?
No.
Oh,
We
it's a change that would modify something that has already been implemented.
exactly. I mean, my leaning would be we leave it off.
I'm okay to
I'm
leave
not,
that off.
yeah, I'm trying to see what's different. The binding required goes away. And the data model supported goes away.
There's the addition of this V2 here.
Oh, that's
But the removal of V1, right?
okay, data models. Okay. Yeah, it's saying we don't need 1.1, we only need 2. Which now 6 months later is probably right, but that thing is probably in there already. Then it's just changing the example. And issuer and issuance date come out because of V2.
If this is not likely to change implementations or be useful in that manner, if it is, then I think we should keep it. If it isn't, then I think that this is likely to be a confusing point because it's modifying an existing RFC that folks are looking at. And if they're using that to
Yeah.
compare with the existing one, then that could be challenging.
Yeah.
If this was added as a note describing how to handle 2, then I think that that would be different. But because it modifies the existing ones, then it's hard to add.
Yeah.
Any
How about
commentary?
Yeah, I think we just leave it for now and let's talk to Patrick about changing it to a comment. Here's what should be changed in this.
Right. Okay, I'm going to comment it, not close. So we want to talk to Patrick about that. Daniel, any success in modifying the push notification PR?
Yes, I just did a forced push, and I think I did it correctly. So I think it's good.
Okay, it still wants me to update the branch. Let me see if I can do that without conflict.
Yeah, should be fine. Yeah.
Nice. Approving review. Nice work,
Yeah.
Daniel.
Throw one on there real fast.
And then I think that's our last item of business with this today. So I had the comment up above that we discussed this in this particular meeting. So that leaves us with 4 pull requests. We did not discuss this one, and and Kim is working on that one. I'm working on this one, and there's a Patrick note for this one. So let's try to have these wrapped up by next week so that we can clean the rest of these pull requests up, and have that done and complete in advance of the sort of the mode change of the thing. So cool. Thanks everyone for coming. Again, please look at this content here, our proposed messaging for the wiki and elsewhere as needed to describe what happened, and then any links in particular in where they need to go, so that we can make sure that folks are directed to the right place. We will work on continue to coordinate the details around the call for startup after IW. And then we will see you all next week to discuss those and any other relevant topics that we need to wrap up as part of the transition to the OWF Interop call. Thanks, folks, for coming, and we will see you all next week and elsewhere.
Thank you.
Yep.